So Cadmus has sown the dragon seed, and out of it came all these men. We can refer to them as the Spartoi, which is the Greek word for sown men, sown as in seed, and not to be confused with the Greek town Sparta. Immediately before now, Ovid has given us a nice, peaceful metaphor of the Spartoi rising out of the ground, much like how statues on a theater curtain rise at the end of a scene. Cadmus, however, isn't privy to Ovid's calming metaphor. Let's read through the next 9 lines. Territus hostenovo cadmus caperarma parabat, ne capa de populo quem terra creaverat unus exclamat. Nec te qui vilibus inserabellis. Atquita terri genis, rigido de fratribus unum culminus inseferit. Jaculo cadet e minus ipsa. Hunc quoque qui le to dederat, non longios illo vivit. Et expirat modo quas a ceperat auras, exemploque pari furit omnes turba suoqua, Marte cadunt. Subiti per mutua vulnera fratres. Not being allowed to be calmed like the reader, Cadmus is naturally affected by the sight of these men coming out of the ground. Again, we should ask what sort of a man Cadmus is if he is terrified by this, but not by the serpent, and if his courage is more splendid really than his spears. The caesura here in this line separates out our description of Cadmus from the main clause. Yes, one of them begins speaking. Ne kappa, he says, which is another way of having a negative imperative, with the understood object of kappa being the arma in the line above. The person who says this is the de populo unus. He goes further and gives us a great insight that probably resonates throughout all of Roman history. Nec te civilibus insera bellis. These bella civilia are about 40 years removed from Ovid's time of writing, but given that Rome was founded by civil war with Romulus and Remus, and had just suffered through a long 100 years of war after. From here on out, Cadmus is as much a spectator as we are. Because this one Spartos instructs Cadmus to stay back, we get a double meaning. Thebes, like Rome, is founded in part through civil war, but its founder, Cadmus, has no part in the battle, and thus is able to represent the peace and order that we need. So perhaps Cadmus is representing Augustus a bit here, who also brought peace and order to Rome. The action in the next few lines is a bit confusing. The grammar helps us out a bit, but let me use different colors to illustrate what has happened. First, we'll start with the one who spoke to Cadmus. He's the unus in line 116, in green. As he speaks to Cadmus, he strikes down another one from his brothers. That's the unum in line 118, Mr. Blue. The ipsa in line 119 is Mr. Green, yet he caught it, falls. Notice the contrast with communus, close in hand-to-hand combat, obvious because of the ensa sword, and aminus, at a distance, out of hand-to-hand combat, also a bit obvious because of the yakulo. So then we have the guy who had killed Mr. Green. Let's have him be Mr. Pink. He doesn't live much longer himself than Mr. Green, and he himself dies. Everyone dies, or almost everyone. The verb furit represents the frenzied, probably unnecessary slaughter of these lines. The Marta in line 123 here is used to represent war itself. We call this metonymy, where the god's name is used for the thing he represents. But this perhaps also brings up the idea that the serpent was described earlier as Martius. Don't forget that these are the serpent's offspring, having sprung from his teeth. Ovid goes poetic on us by referring to these new men as subiti fratres, sudden brothers. Let's read through the lines one more time and visualize the frenzied slaughter of the Spartoi. Territus hostenovo cadmus caperarma parabat, ne capa de populo quem terra creaverat unus exclamat. Nec te qui vilibus inserabellis. Atquita terri genis, rigido de fratribus unum culminus inseferit. Jaculo cadet e minus ipsa. Hunc quoque qui le to dederat, non longios illo vivit. Et expirat modo quas a ceperat auras, exemploque pari furit omnes turba suoqua, Marte cadunt. Subiti per mutua vulnera fratres.